Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Schatar Safira Collier. Thank you so much for joining us for the Super Live Producers 12-week training and certification program. Today, we're going to be talking about documentaries. And for those who joined us for Friday's segment, you were able to watch some documentaries and prepare your questions. So at this time, I'm going to bring up Maxie Collier, the founder of Super Live Streams and Super Live Producers. Welcome, Maxie.
Good afternoon, sweetheart. Good afternoon. As always, thank you for this great introduction. We are very excited to be having this session. Okay, so officially this is a Q&A session on documentary filmmaking. As Schatar mentioned, on Friday, we streamed out live to our multiple platforms nearly 4 hours of documentary content that we've created. Everything from my documentary Paper Chasers on up to more recent documentaries we've created, so it's been great. I mean, we've loved these comments and the input and the feedback from everyone. So we just wanted to create an opportunity for people to ask us questions live, to ask us about planning your documentary, coming up with your documentary concept, fundraising, shooting, editing, distribution, promotion, anything that may come to mind. And along the way, we're going to introduce you to our new documentary filmmaking course that's upcoming. When we launched the Super Live Producers Training Program in October, we knew that we had massive volumes of information to share and cover on many different topics. We chose to focus on live streaming and web video producers because there was such a demand for so many businesses and organizations. Now that we've nearly completed the bulk of our training for the Super Live Producers Training Program, we still have one more week to go. We are now beginning to roll out and are very excited to beginning to roll out some of our new training classes. Schatar has a new course coming up. Dear, you want to talk about that a little bit?
I absolutely do. It's called Live Streaming and Web Video for Business. So anyone who's in business may know that you have an opportunity to market to your customers. So right now, while most people are at home, you may want to be able to reach them online so that they can see your information perhaps on a streaming site or even on their phone. So a way that you can effectively do this is with the use of video. But a lot of people have no idea, about how to do video or production in general, or even, understand the significance of being able to live stream to their customers. So we go step by step, showing you how to go from absolutely zero video to having a fully completed video or live stream that you can use to promote your business or brand. And so that will be coming in February. And we have a preview if you'd like to watch it at this time, or maybe we can save it for later in the segment.
Let's go ahead and roll it now. And again, this is a preview of Schatar's upcoming class teaching you how to use web video and live streaming for your business. Now, this is a self-paced class. The students will be able to go through all the material. And again, what we realize is, we have training programs such as the Super Live Producers Training Program and Certification. This is a multi-month initiative. There's multiple lessons and quizzes and projects and things involved in that. Schatar's training video, the self-paced one, it's going to be about what, dear? About 90 minutes? What do you think it's going to be?
Yes, between 60 and 90 minutes with step-by-step information, as well as full links where you can actually click and go to sites. For example, there's one that we use where you can input your keywords and messaging, and then the site will make the video for you.
So it's a very action and activity-oriented course. So let's go ahead and roll the preview of that, dear.
Copy that.
So now you have the idea of how to write your script. You understand your keywords, messaging, and tone. Now you're wondering where to get those beautiful images, and I am going to tell you the exact sites like Pixabay, Pexels, and Canva. So in this lesson, we're going to talk about where to get the goods. All of those beautiful glossy images that you see in other commercials, you might be able to have for yourselves. So the assets for your commercials are things like your videos, your pictures, your audio, your narration, and your music. And we're going to tell you exactly where to go to get those assets to incorporate into your video. You can either create them, as we've talked about, or you can curate them. And if you are curating them, we'll tell you where to get them. People often ask me if you can just go ahead and grab some images off the web and grab somebody else's music. The answer is no. That is absolutely wrong. Do not take somebody else's copyrighted images or music off the web. We're going to tell you where you can legally get music, images, and even videos where you can incorporate them into your productions. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Great job, dear. Great job.
Thank
So
you.
what we want to tell folks is yes, you can optionally order Schatar's course individually. It will be available this upcoming week. But you can also, and again, you can, with the Super Live Producers Training program, you can purchase individual programs and courses, such as the Super Live Producers program or Schatar's upcoming web video program. Or we also now have a membership option. So, and we'll discuss this a little bit more later, but you can go click superliveproducers.com/sign up, and you'll see that we have a monthly membership option where for $197 a month, you can access all of our training materials, or for $19.97 a year, you save even more. And again, you can access every training program that we have right there now, and the many more that we have upcoming, including Schatar's training program, including our documentary filmmaking course. All right. So dear, you have anything else you want to say about that before we move on?
I'm just so glad to be able to get the tools, resources, and information into the hands of the business owners that can actually benefit, because there are customers sitting at home who may want to learn more about what you're offering. And so this with video is a really great way to reach them.
And
And also
again,
we have one.
yes. What up,
All right.
Rob?
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much for
joining us
joining
again.
us.
Yes. Yeah. So again, the idea here is that you are investing in yourself. You're making an investment in a training program that offers a very set curriculum now, but also we're branching out into, as we mentioned, documentary filmmaking, into self-publishing, into a variety of areas that are going to help you. Because the reality is, we say the word producing, and we said this early in our training. A lot of people think music producers and video producers or film producers. But the fact is, anytime we take an idea plus resources plus planning and we create something bigger than those pieces, that is producing. So whether we're publishing, whether we're producing conferences, whether we're producing stage plays or screenplays, it is that is what we are training in this training program. Any questions before we move on?
Let's see, we have hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us, Justin. Thank you. And
Yes,
hopefully you'll
indeed.
be able to benefit from this information on how to make videos as well, in addition to the ones that you may be doing now. We'll show you some additional tips.
All right, so then cool. Then let's go ahead and get rolling with some of our documentary Q&A. And along the way, we're going to show you guys different samples. If you missed any of the works that we shared the other day, you can visit paperchasers.tv and you can go check out the entire Paper Chasers documentary at any point in time. And so we've also have written a book. Hey, dear, actually, let's go ahead and roll a clip. Let's go ahead and roll Josh Sun's clip. And this next clip that we're going to show you before we get deeper into our documentary Q&A, this is a short documentary that our son created 2 years ago when he was in high school, inspired by the C-SPAN contest on what does it mean to be an American. And we were very proud because we were completely hands off on this documentary. But how we did help Josh Sun is we have a book, and I'll share the page when we come back from the link in a second. And in this book, it's called My Documentary Pre-Production Journal. And in this book, it's a pocket-sized guide that you can carry around and make notes as your documentary ideas come to mind. So we look at it like this. We're keeping notes on our subjects. We're keeping notes on our potential crew people, on our potential distribution deals. Any idea that comes to mind, you're able to jot them down in this journal, and it helps you formulate your documentary. But we'll talk some more about it after we show. This is What It Is to Be American by Jason Collier. Roll the clip, please.
America, the land of the free, the land of opportunity, the melting pot of cultures. Whatever name you wish to give it, America is one of the most well-known countries in the world, and is even considered to be the greatest by a lot of people. However, if I, Jason Collier, were to ask you how it is to be American, could you give me an answer? Or maybe even a national characteristic that you think we all share? Maybe you could, maybe you couldn't. But I know for sure that if you were to ask me a national characteristic that's shared between us, it'd have to be the American dream. But that leads to yet another question. What exactly is the American dream? Well, during my winter break, I went to Las Vegas to visit my grandparents, and while I was there, I interviewed them to see what they had to say. What is the American dream to you?
To have an opportunity to become whatever I want to become, and it be fun and everlasting. That's what the American dream is.
That's an interesting question. What is the American dream to me? I actually think when you look historically at how America was founded, and if you notice it was founded upon the whole notion that as humans we need a greater level of freedoms than other societies were offering. And I think that's the dream that I have adopted, is that the American dream has to do with humankind having as many degrees of freedom as possible in all areas of life and being able to individually actualize those dreams.
Although, my quest to see how it is to be American didn't end there, as I thought it'd be a good idea to get strangers' perspectives on the American dream. So naturally, I decided to go down to the Strip and visit New York, and downtown Las Vegas.
So for me, the American dream is just basically to have the life of your dreams, and for that, to me, means basically not having to work for money and having the time that I want. So just be able to not struggle, live life.
All right, and do you think the media impacts the way we live as Americans, would you say?
Probably, because I feel like there's a lot more that we don't know that's out there.
I think the American dream to me is equality, because no matter how much people talk about it, it's never like truly equal. You know, like I'm ready for the playing field to be equal in all aspects. Like, you know, everybody have the same opportunities and things of that nature. So when the world gets like that, then I feel like we will finally be at a place where like America is that place. But right now I feel like we're digging ourselves in a deeper hole. So like I think we're going backwards in the grand scheme of things. I don't even think we're close to the true American dream in my perspective.
After visiting Las Vegas, I thought I had gotten all the necessary interviews I needed for my documentary. But once I was back in Colorado, I decided to visit my Nana and asked her what she thought about what it's like to be American.
I'm not sure if there is an American dream. I know that's a saying, but the American dream means that everybody has equal access to becoming successful. And I don't think that's true. It may be true for a group of people, but not for other groups. So
She also stated some things that surprised me, like how she thinks America was better when it was segregated.
I know that sounds strange, and I may get some flack, but I don't care. This is my honest opinion. When we were segregated, we had our own businesses. We had flower shops. We had grocery stores, beauty parlors. We had everything. We had so many small business owners because we had to, because we weren't allowed to go into the white ones. But we had an abundance of small businessmen. We had a good economy going, the black economy. And when we became integrated, we started going to the white people's establishment, and we stopped having businesses of our own. The only things we have now are the funeral parlors and the beauty parlors. So in a way, that was a disservice to us.
While the official definition of the American dream says the ideal by which equality of opportunities available to any American allowing the highest aspirations and goals to be achieved, clearly this definition isn't accurate for every American. Some people believe the American dream is real, some believe it's just a myth, and others believe you have to be a certain gender or race to truly experience it. Personally, I believe the American dream is achieving whatever lifelong goal you set out to accomplish, whether it be big or small. Because the beautiful thing about America is that everyone has an opportunity to succeed at whatever they wish. Yes, it may be harder for you depending on your race or gender, but you can still succeed nonetheless. Because at the end of the day, America is the land of opportunity. That's how it is to be American.
It's the answer spoken by young and old, rich and poor, Democrat and Republican, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, gay, straight, disabled and not disabled, Americans who send a message to the world that we have never been just a collection of individuals or a collection of red states and blue states. We are and always will be the United States of America.
All right, so if you're just joining us, this is Documentary Filmmaking Q&A. You just finished watching What Is It to Be an American by Jason Collier, our son, Jason. And today we're just talking about the documentary filmmaking process, taking some questions, and we're introducing our new training course, 2 new training courses. Schatar's new course on producing web, video, and live streams for your business, and our upcoming training course on producing documentary films. So now, if you're ready to get started at this very moment on producing your own documentaries, you can go over to Amazon and you can take a look and Google My Documentary Development Journal. That's My Documentary Development Journal. This is the journal that Schatar and I created last year, and it is a pocket guide that walks people through the process of creating notes on their documentary films. And so the idea is to provide basic terminology and to provide some prompts. So you find things, for example, these prompts like this ask you to write down the ideas for the name of your book. We have you come up with questions for your interview. These are all things that by the time you put them together, it's countless decisions that you would have already had to make during your documentary filmmaking process. And I'm just going to share a little bit more of what it looks like inside of the text, over here. And again, this is called My Documentary Journal, and it's available on Amazon right now. You can order it and you can begin documenting. So for example, what potential collaborators are available or in reach, because the idea is by identifying what resources, tools we have available early on, we can then begin to create our documentaries with kind of a head up. So all of these questions are designed to make you think of things. And again, it's a pocket-sized book that can, you can carry it around with you in order to anytime just jot down your notes. And again, this is the pre-production journal. We'll have a whole separate journal that teaches people how to handle their media and things during post-production. Are there any other questions there so far, there?
The comments, great work, Jason. That's here in the chat. So nice work, Jason. Okay, yes, and that was for a C-SPAN competition. So we're very proud of him to take the initiative and go from start to finish to having the product that people can watch. Also, is it possible to look at the page on the documentary development journal that shows the steps of the production process? Yes. Because we understand that there can be some very complex things that go into every piece of production, live streaming, documentary production, web video production. And so we do our best to take it step by step, one piece at a time, explain it fully, and then move on to the next piece. So here you can see the steps of the production process that we've talked about in one of the earlier weeks of the cohort, but it's right here in the book for you. So you can flip directly to this page and keep it tabbed if you need to, but you can carry it with you on set. And I find that documents like this, books like this are helpful to keep my notes and planning as I'm going through the day with the production process.
Yes, traditionally, I keep these nonstop, all day long and dropping my notes and ideas in. But the advantage is for the My Documentary Journal is it helps you keep all your notes and ideas related to that specific project in one place. And, and again, it's designed so that every time you do a project, you just get a new journal, start building those notes, and then you'll look up and you'll be surprised at how many details. And again, this costs you nothing to make these sort of notes. This is the greatest, most least expensive stage of your development for your documentary idea. The point in time in which you don't have any other folks on your team, you're obligated, you're not spending much money, you're just gathering and organizing your ideas. So the documentary course here at Super Live Producers, we use this book as our guide. And over the course of 4 weeks, we walk people through the process of building their documentary, of planning their documentary and building their documentary. And so again, you can see that we have a variety of courses that we do make available here individually on Super Live Producers. And in some cases, people are going to really want to hone in and focus on one particular thing. But in other instances, there's going to be people who want to dabble and experiment and try a lesson here or a course there. And that's exactly why we set up this membership opportunity now. Do you have anything else you'd like to say?
I just want to say that now is the time. While some people are at home, you may have extra time to finally make that documentary that you've wanted to, or make that family video that you've been thinking about. And so you don't have to go alone. You can actually come and we can answer questions for you, just like we're doing today. So anyone who tuned in on Friday, they were able to watch all of the documentaries from start to finish and prepare their questions. So today we're having a very special Q&A as part of this Super Live Producers 12-week training and certification program to answer those questions, to get those tools and resources into the hands of the members of our cohort who are actually right here in the virtual studio with us. We haven't brought them up on screen yet, but they are here and participating in the conversation via the private chat we have and through the member chat on our site.
Hey, dear, thanks for reminding me. I want to say RIP again to Sandy Plummer, who was featured in that video, Josh Sun's grandma,
Yes.
who just passed away 2 weeks ago. And so when we did our session on family history videos, we spoke about the importance of documenting our elders, and of turning those documentaries into little stories so their voices and their faces can be seen. The ironic thing was, at the time we did that session, Josh Sun's grandma hadn't even passed yet. And so now here we are with another example of, yes, lots of people want to be Michael Moore, the next documentary filmmaker, a commercial, celebrity and making lots of money doing documentaries, but that's like kind of a small group of people. As what we're talking about here is the role of documentary as a tool in our lives and in our businesses. So when we talk about telling family histories, that's using documentaries in our lives, to archive and to collect stories and to make them available to the next generation. But in our businesses, more now than ever, we need to tell our personal stories. For authentic marketing and for authentic communication, it's about finding and extracting stories in ourselves, in our lives, that are relevant to the people who are watching our programs, that are studying and learning from us. So this process of documentary filmmaking is a storytelling process. And so in the 4 weeks of the documentary filmmaking course, we'll walk you through and introduce you to all of these steps. But you'll also be using the journal to begin building very specific notes on your projects. Okay, so dear, let's see if any of the Super Live producers folks, so Wayne, Ardell, Jen, Ada, Mia, any of you guys have questions on anything that you all have seen in the documentaries these past few days? And if so, let us know. We'd like to bring you up on camera and just shoot a message in the chat room and we'll bring you up on camera. So dear, as you think about Poultry Princess, now let's talk about something else different. Another thing we reference in the book. What's the difference between reality TV content and documentary film content? You want to address that?
Okay, so there are many things that count as reality TV content right now. And a lot of people, when they think about reality TV content, they're thinking about, some of the shows like the ones I participated on, Flavor of Love, Charmed School, The Real Housewives of the different cities. But there are also other forms of reality content, such as the cooking shows you might see on Food Network, the baking competitions, and so on. Those are all considered reality shows or reality-based programming, whereas documentaries, they actually chronicle the lives or
one question there. I'm sorry.
One question there. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Is it real?
You said, is it for ratings? You said ratings. Is that the R word for ratings and to entertain the viewers? Is that what you were saying with the creative storylines and?
Yes, worldwide wrestling is real now.
Yes, absolutely, and very entertaining, and one of the most effective forms of television today. One of the most popular, and it's not just here. Yes, cost effective.
And most expeditious in terms of producing. I mean, there are reality TV shows that they're shooting even remotely, even in Corona times, that they're shooting last week and they end up on the air in a couple of weeks. So as a documentary filmmaker, I guess I've been asked this question so many times about, what's the difference between reality TV and documentaries? And what we teach the Super Live producers is that often the only difference between content, because everything we produce follows a similar pattern to right here. But what the difference between documentaries, in my experience and in my opinion, and reality TV is the structure and the organization and the way that the stories are told. We are seeking, typically in documentaries, we're seeking cinematic experience visually. We're looking to tell stories with motion pictures. That's the origin of movies, motion pictures. With reality TV, We are looking to capture individuals and circumstances, but it may be more contrived in the planning, meaning that they cast people on reality shows looking for people who may be villains, looking for people who may be heroes, like my dear wifey was on Flavor of Love. You know, all of that is crafted early on in the development and in the pre-production stages. And even during the production stages on reality TV shows, you'll find that producers may inject themselves and guide the subject. Or, I see you laughing. Go ahead. You want to speak on that a little bit?
Well, now that we are communicating and training the Super Live producers to look at production in a certain way, when you are watching your favorite reality programming, or if you're watching even a cooking show, let's say, or a cooking competition or a baking show, I want you to think about how is it that content is on your television, right? Think about the very beginning. What is being captured by the camera? Where is that camera on set? How is it that this footage and this story is being captured? So you have to think about that as you are watching the content, so that as you are creating the content, you can get ideas for your own productions as well.
You're very correct, because in documentaries, yes, we may put the camera explicitly in someone's face and sit them down and begin to interview them and ask them questions based upon preconceived ideas. However, typically in a documentary, as those interviews are unfolding, as we're finding storylines, as documentarians, we begin to follow those threads. We begin to surf and ride those versus trying to constrain or direct. So traditionally in reality TV, they're going to have, when they cast those archetypes of villains and heroes, they're going to have storylines that they envision for those folks. And sometimes when people are sitting down, the producers may even feed people questions to ask on camera. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, asking specific questions so that you can provide a particular answer, or even you have to realize that editing is also a key part of every show. So, for example, you might ask someone a question and perhaps they answer something one way, but with the magic of editing, by the time it gets to the television screen, their answer may be something completely different in response to the question that the viewer just saw. So all of these are things to think about as you're watching television, as you're watching web videos, and then think about these tools as you create your own web videos and live streams. And I'm seeing plenty of comments and questions here in the chat window. Should I just bring folks up to ask?
Yeah, let me say one thing about relevant about writing
Okay.
too. Yeah, Wayne, we're going to bring you up in just a second. So people have asked me too, why do you need writers in reality TV, or why do you need writers in documentary filmmaking? So in reality TV, we talked about those archetypes and those villains. They're determined early on. So once they are cast, or even sometimes before they're cast, they say, hey, we're going to look for someone like this to portray a character like that. And then they're going to guide people through the storyline or the season. In documentary film, so the writer may be involved at every stage in the reality TV, right? And their words and their direction are shaping and pushing things. Whereas in documentary filmmaking, we often are writing voiceovers, we're writing interview questions, we're writing introductions to people, things like that. So we are writing things based upon what we recorded. We are writing things based upon what we filmed and what we have in our archives. So again, we mentioned before, we take that video footage, we get that transcribed. So now we're working in a word space anyway. That's one of the main reasons that we have to do transcriptions for documentaries, is that it allows us to now edit things on a word level and on a conceptual level. So, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and bring Wayne up there.
Okay, Wayne, bringing you to the feed. Hi,
Mic check,
welcome.
mic check. How you doing, Wayne? Oh, let's get your, let's unmute his mic, please, dear.
Hello.
Right. Hey.
Hi, Maxie, Schatar. How you guys doing?
Good. Great to have you up here.
How about yourself?
Yes. Just to ditto what Ardell had said, we definitely enjoyed the a documentary that Jason had produced. Okay. I had a question regarding the documentary.
Yes.
When you interview Forrest the guest, is there like a character release form or something that has to be done before or even after, just to let the people that has been interviewed that they're going to be, on this video or not?
Yes, that's a great question, Wayne. And again, we do not
Yes.
disseminate legal or financial advice here at Super Live Producers. Okay. However, and, from having worked with documentaries a very long time, whenever possible, yes, we want a signed release. And not only that, though, if we know the outlet that we're going to, we want a signed release that is approved by the distribution outlet that we're going to. So, for example, when I did Paper Chasers, they created a release for us. Now, that said, there was plenty of times when we would get ready to roll cameras with someone and we did not have a written release with us, or it may have just been me shooting by myself. And as the cameras were rolling, I would say, do you give me permission to film and use your image and likeness for our documentary project? And they would say, yes, I such and such give permission to use my image and likeness for your documentary project, right? So we would get a verbal release when possible, right? However, there's a couple other caveats also. One is for things that are recorded in public spaces. You are as that was for Jason when he was out on the strip. So he was there, and so under the copyright law and things like that, there's special caveats for news, for creating content for news. That's why you can see people use copyrighted material from one channel on another channel, because that provision that allows it to be used in the context of news and discussion, so yes. So we ended up, and that project that Jason did was for C-SPAN. So they had a couple, they gave criteria. They said what could and what couldn't be done and things like that. I think they may even have provided a release form, so yeah. So because in this time right now, with there being so many online streaming channels, if you have release forms for your video content, and this multiple types of release, we're talking about personal release forms for the image and likeness, right? But if someone was holding up their poster art or some photo or something that they had copyright, then we can use another release form called a material release form. That material release form means that copyright owner of that photo or that artwork has given us permission to show their video in our project. So we had to get lots of those for Paper Chasers. And then also there's the music release forms, and so there's the publishing release form in terms of the words and for the copyright, but then there's also something called a synchronization. So the first one gives us a right to use the song in our movie. The synchronization means we have the right to match that audio with our video and synchronize them and then sell it. So when you get ready to hand your movie into a distributor in the old way, people are way less stringent certain areas, but if you're going to go to a Netflix, if you're going to go to a PBS, if you're going to go to any mainstream distributor, they're going to want every one of these releases. That is, again, the personal release, the music releases, the material releases, and some of them make you get a type of insurance called error and omissions insurance. And that insurance is to help protect you and them if someone pops up with a copyright claim on your project. That's what errors and omissions insurance is for.
Cool.
I'm so glad that you mentioned. Yes, you're welcome. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because exactly when you are going to a distributor, you have to have all of your talent releases, appearance releases, and so on in a file. And generally, you will give them all of those releases.
Yes.
Also, if you decide to sell that particular production, sell that property, you can put in the talent release that the rights are transferable when you sell that. Or you can have it that the rights go back to that individual and then they are not transferable when you sell that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when we were talking the other day and gave the warnings about building an idea around one song. No, that was in Clubhouse, actually. Yeah, when we gave a warning about the idea of building, like the young lady had a project where she had built it around all these different copyrighted songs. And we were saying about how at that point in time, there are so many releases and so many other stakeholders that you are literally giving away part of your project when you build projects around permissions that you don't own and that you don't have. And there's been plenty of cases where things have gone viral and have become very successful, and the copyright owners come right in and grab a majority share of it. You know. Oh, by the way, Wayne, for folks who need composing and mixing for their video projects, can you tell us about what you do?
Yes, I am an audio mix engineer, music producer, songwriter, and singer. Of course, that means a whole lot of different things, but my primary work, or what I take a lot of pride in, is my audio mix engineering. So, like in this time of COVID, a lot of people are making a lot of material, and if they need any mixing done, they can go to goldenwordmusic.com and send their audio files to me. So that's
All
pretty
right.
much, yeah.
Great.
Hey, I
Great.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so are there any other questions in the audience before we begin to wrap up this short Q&A? And again, if you're interested in making your own documentaries, if you want a low-cost solution to get you started, then you can come over here to Amazon and you can Google My Documentary Development Journal. And this book was written by Schatar and I about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. We continue to update it. We have another updated version coming out in a few months. But again, it's designed to help get you started through a series of questions, exercise, writing prompts, and things like that. If you're ready to make a more substantial investment in your documentary filmmaking career, you can go over to superliveproducers.com/plans/membership, and you can sign up for a monthly membership for $197 a month or $19.97 a year, and you gain access to Super Live Producers Training course, to my documentary training course, and to Schatar's live streaming and web video for your business. And we have many other courses coming, courses on self-publishing, courses coming on building your mobile apps. You know, so the idea is we are here to make this information accessible, and we're here to make ourselves accessible. We have one more week left in the public part of the Super Live Producers Training Program. After that, we're going to take a month off, focus on these next courses, focus on helping the members of the Super Live Producers Training Program finish their things, and then we're going to come back with the documentary filmmaking course and a few other programs for the next phase of Super Live Producers. Do you have anything to say before we wrap up here?
Actually, we do have additional questions here in the chat. I went one from Ardell. I'll bring him up to the screen to ask the question. Here we go.
Cool. Mic check. What's up, Ardell?
Hi, welcome. And if you can please unmute your mic for us.
Hello, there we go.
There we go.
Studio's looking lovely, Ardell.
Appreciate it, man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was wondering, you know, after watching the paper chase, I was wondering if you was planning on doing a 2.0, like where are they now after they chase the paper?
You know what's funny, man? You know, just like everything else in this planet, you know, the world has gone from analog to digital since we did paper chasers 20 years ago. You know, so now I guess it technically would be like Bitcoin chasers or some shit like that, you know, but you know, but the reality is, you know, we have so many more interviews, you know, I did more than 200 interviews, about 50 of them made it into the movie. You know, and what's crazy is that when, yes, it's been 20 years, you know, well, we started filming the movie in the year 2000. It debuted at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2003, and it came out on the Independent Film Channel and on DVD in 2005. You know, so I have about 150 videos that have never been seen. And what's significant about that is that when I was negotiating my production contract in the year 2000, that was the financing contract, I fought so hard for the rights to retain footage outside of what we delivered for the documentary. I mean, it was multiple contracts, multiple iterations. And at that particular time, you know, I was going against the grain. First of all, this was my first documentary project. I was in a 50-50 partnership on my first film, but that was only because
for people who are not familiar with production contracts, can you please I really want to commend you on this, because the type of agreement that you were able to secure was extremely rare. Can you please let folks know what was standard at that time as far as rights that filmmakers were able to access for their production?
Yes. Thank you for that question, dear. Yeah, so it's at two places. It's at two places where I had to do critical negotiations for the rights to my documentary. First was in the production deal, and that means the people who are agreeing to finance the project. So so Paper Chasers was financed by a company called Next Wave Films. That was a division of a tiny small company called the Independent Film Channel. Now, the founder of Next Wave Films, Peter Broderick, one of my mentors, I had met him 3 years prior to getting my deal. In that time, between the time I met him and the time we got the deal, I wrote a book. I wrote this book on digital filmmaking. I wrote and self-published this book, and it became a bestseller. But more importantly, I was in a 50-50 deal on this book as well. So what I had learned when Master P came up in there at BET, what I learned with all those different hip hop heads who came in there in the mid to late 90s, I learned about ownership. And I learned about how some of the some celebrities who I looked up to, some entrepreneurs who I looked up to, major brands, that in many cases, they were licensing deals, though they did not own those companies. So by the time that I sold 1,000 copies of this book for $30 between 1998 and 99, I knew that whatever deal that I was going to do, I was going to retain ownership for my book. So by the time that we came around to do negotiation for the Paper Chasers documentary, I was ownership oriented as well. I knew, and I knew I had learned at that point, it was ownership on two things that I had to fight for. One, ownership of the original film, but most importantly, ownerships on all of those videos and all that interview that never made it into the original film. Having learned from my friends who had done whack distribution deals in the 90s, I knew that a lot of these production companies, they were tossing out money, $50,000 to $100,000 to, a couple $100,000 for people to make movies, right? But most often my friends who were doing those deals were making movies. They were busting their ass. Again, if you get a $150,000 budget, it may sound like a lot of money. And Drew Haas says this in Paper Chasers. It may sound like a lot of money, but now you're writing checks to people. You're paying out people for all these different things. And then you look up, as he says, and you may not even have paid yourself. So I had seen friends go through that process of coming up with ideas for stories, whether it's a narrative film, whether it's a documentary. I saw them work hard to sell it, to find someone to finance it. And then they work hard to shoot it, calling in favors on friends. Then they hand that film over to the financier. And that's it. No royalties, no additional money is coming. And that financier owns that film in perpetuity. In perpetuity, forever, ever, ever. So if you go right now on YouTube and you type Black movies, and you'll see a whole string of movies, Black films that were made in the 90s that are popping up on YouTube on these different channels. And the filmmakers who made those films, they're not getting any money. They have no control over the cover, the project, or anything, because the financier financed the project and they have full ownership over it. So by the time we got ready to do Paper Chasers, I was like, look, I have to come out here owning something, right? So in our distribution deal for Paper Chasers, the Independent Film Channel put up $150,000. At that point in time, I had to do something called a copyright mortgage. A copyright mortgage is just like it sounds for a regular mortgage. That's them saying that until you recoup the money that we put in it, and they ended up being a total of $225,000 by the time we finished the movie 3 years later. They say, until you recoup that $225,000, Maxie, yes, you own the movie, but we have a mortgage on it, just like a regular house, right? And that mortgage is still on this movie to this day, because then the next area where I had to fight for negotiations was once the movie was done. Okay, so the first fight was for the money. You're about to hand me some money. We're about to invest and make something. However, my team and I, we own half of it. You own half of it. If we ever make money in excess of what you guys put out, half that revenue will be ours. So that was the first fight. And any other photos, any other videos, I have the right to use those. And the original movie in my year 2000 negotiation, I said at the least I have the right to put the original movie on my own domain, which is why it's on paperchasers.tv right now. No matter what the copyright mortgage is, I have the right to at least put it on my own domain. And they made a caveat. I said, okay, you could put it on your own domain, but only in 5-minute chunks. So if you go to paperchasers.tv, you'll see the whole movie here in 5-minute chunks based on a contract that was negotiated 20 years ago. Now, contrast that to some of my friends who negotiated those contracts 20 years ago, and they have never been able to do anything else with their film as it's been pushed through the pipeline. So the next point where I had to work hard in the negotiations was once the movie was done. So now here's three years later, we go to Tribeca Film Festival, we end up being in the New York Times. We get all this mad love. Fat Joe was there at the screening, Sway was there at the screening, Ludacris's manager. We got mad love. That was in the spring of 2003. I spent the next 7 months negotiating all these distribution contracts that were coming. There was all these deals that were being presented. Now, the fact is, the Independent Film Channel had assigned me a producer's rep. And that's basically like an agent who's supposed to go out and shop your film around. I didn't know it at the time, but that producer's rep had their own agenda. So while distribution offers were coming in over here, they were trying to route me over there, right? Now, again, though, I had learned all this game. I had been schooled directly by people who had been through these deals and things, so I drove the negotiations. I didn't wait for the producer's rep. And here's what was key. As those distribution contracts would come in and as those proposals and those offers, here's very important for anybody thinking about distribution. We can't just look at the words. We have to turn those words into numbers. So I did something that at the time that I called open book negotiations. I would take those contract offers that they were giving us and I turned them into Microsoft spreadsheets. And I learned how to do this because going back to my book distribution deal, the distributor who they eventually brought on to distribute my book, he became very contentious because I was in a 50-50 joint deal. So every time a royalty statement would come from them, I'd have to go sit in the lobby of iFilm Incorporated and do the math and thank my high school algebra teachers because I would repeatedly catch people trying to steal money from me by inflating expenses, by denying the income where it came in place. I'm talking about I would go up there, get that check. They would say, "Oh, Maxie, aren't you happy you got the $10,000 check?" I go downstairs and sit in the lobby, click, 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 go right back upstairs an hour later and be like, "You owe me $837. Because I had learned that if we just focus on the contracts and the verbiage of these contracts, you can look at a deal that looks good on paper. But until you run some numbers through there, you are not going to know what you have. So that means you have to work with your lawyers and your accountant in the distribution stages. We always have heard, have a lawyer, have a lawyer. No, you need a CPA also. You need someone who's going to tell you that what they're telling you in that contract and the math behind it both make sense. So that I fought for 7 months for those distribution deals. This offer would come, I'd run it through my spreadsheet and they'd be like, "Hey, aren't you happy you're going to get $100,000 advance?" I'd be like, "No, that doesn't mean shit to me and my crew because none of that's going to make it back to us. Remember, we owe $225 over here." So I knew, okay, cool. None of that money's going to make it back to us. Let me negotiate a post-production finishing budget that will come to me and my crew. And me telling, I'm not going to sign this deal unless this $15,000 post-production budget is allocated over here. Because that's another way that people get got in distribution is they finish their movie, they go sign a distribution deal, but nowadays the advances are minimal. Again, we got $100,000 from Koch, which became E1 distributor, which is now one of the biggest distributors in the world. So they paid $100,000 advance plus $15,000 for me to go back into editing and finish the movie. Out of that $15,000 for finishing, I made $4,000. That was the last money I ever got off the Paper Chasers project in 2004. Our distribution deal that started was a 7-year distribution deal because I had learned to put term limitations on our distribution deals. A term limitation means that at the end of the distribution, you are no longer have the right to distribute my project. So in 2012, you could, at one point in time, you could go see Paper Chasers on Netflix, you go see Paper Chasers on Amazon, and Blockbuster all over. It was everywhere. I never made $1 from it. But because I knew about that reversion clause, I knew that at the end of those 7 years, no matter how they screwed me over on royalties, that movie was going to come back to me. And I'd have the right to use not the original movie because it had the copyright mortgage, but I could use all that footage. And in the original version of the distribution deal with E1, they said, send us every single tape you filmed, every negative you made. And the original contract said they would have the right to use that forever. I was like, oh, hell no. Master P showed me that's not going to happen. So in 2012,
thank you, Master P.
I'm serious.
Seriously.
In 2012, it was a joy to watch Paper Chaser start coming down off the web. And other people were like, don't you feel bad it's not on Netflix? I'm like, no, that it does not impact me, you know?
No,
So
anyone who watched Saturday Night Live last night, which was actually a replay of the episode from November, it was hosted by Dave Chappelle, and he talks about this exactly.
He sure does.
He talks about how Chappelle's show was on different channels and how it was on Netflix and how he wasn't getting paid for any of them. And that what he did was he contacted Netflix about that and said, you know, it just makes me feel bad that my content is on there and we're not getting paid anything for it. And he said that they took it down and that's why, you know, he encourages people and can speak highly of them. So I want to say thank you to Netflix for respecting that, especially when there are so many artists out here who may be in the same situation who are not getting paid from other things you might see on TV. So that was a very similar thing. Mm-hmm.
Well, Netflix wasn't altruistic. They are the most vested person in Dave Chappelle right now. They're his partners at the highest level. They're his platform.
Yes.
So they have a reason to keep him happy, you know. And so but here's the thing. Back then, when I saw about these, first the production deals, how whack they were, and then the distribution deals, that whole 7 months of negotiation, I was labeled the problem. I was the angry black man because I said, I'm not signing this distribution deal. Well, Maxie, this is your standard book distribution deal. Well, but I'm not in a standard deal. So why are you trying to get me? In fact, the editor of this book, the publisher. Okay, so the way it happened was I wrote this book, I self-published the original version, and then I licensed it to this company called iFilm right here. iFilm was the .com startup. iFilm went out and bought a publishing company to publish my book. And so when the publisher, and again, I learned tremendous things about publishing deals from this publisher, Jeff Black. Big up, Jeff Black. Thank you for all that. I learned, through bought lessons. With that publishing deal, that publisher was vexed. He was like, Maxie, there is no other veteran publisher in our roster who is making as much as you on these deals. And so now they try to guilt me and they try to shame you and guilt you into taking these standard deals, so that was at an early level. So by the time I got into distribution with these video distributors, I said, I knew what y'all are coming with. I know what angles you all are trying to come from. I know that I am in a money losing proposition. So let me negotiate the best that I can right now because y'all not going to give a fuck about me once this contract is signed. Yeah, that's what happened. And let's see, I signed the deal, like I said, and the movie came out on Koch and E1 in 2005. Finally, I got frustrated in like 2008 or 9, and I called them and said, hey, where's my royalty statement? I know you're not going to send me no money, but can a brother at least get a royalty statement? So they sent me one royalty statement. And again, E1 is one of the biggest TV distributors and brands on the company right now. I have no trash to talk about them because they were doing their business. They were doing what they knew. They were doing what was standard. But I do have a name for that, which is standard in this industry. I call it institutionalized fuckery. Institutionalized fuckery is built into every level of the music business, the film business, any business where there's a content creator who makes something, there's a producer who may or may not take that, and a distributor who may or may not take that, all according to standard deals. So what's happening now, though, is that we're seeing that there are these financial companies and they're putting together these funds. And they're going out and buying up intellectual property for all these artists directly, like Lil Wayne just did it, $100 million deal for his masters. Now what's the difference between that and the old system? Well, one, they are acknowledging the role of the creator in making that valuable intellectual property. See, before it was these publishers, these middlemen, these managers, these labels, they were all right there in the middle. So that's how that institutionalized fuckery was allowed to perpetuate. In the Super Live Producers class, we talked about the song from The Lion King. The famous song, Awinga, down in the jungle, the mighty jungle. You guys go to Google and research about that song and find out about how there was a family in South Africa where the creator of that song for 50 years, 50 years, someone else collected money, but before the creator of the song, before his family ever got a dime. So they had to go do a lawsuit and they won a huge settlement on that. If you go look at some of your favorite songs, your favorite movies, your favorite artists, they don't own it. They don't own their names in many cases. They don't own their catalogs. And again, we're talking about authors, musicians, film producers, inventors, lots of people creating intellectual property who have been exploited by legacy systems in the financing, in the production, and in the distribution stages. And I'm done being a radical today. That's all I got to say. Are there any other questions, dear?
So checking the chat window. So that was a great question. Hope you got your answer there, Ardell. Thank you so much for your great question here. And so as we're, continuing to give the people in the Super Live Producers Training Program the information on the business, we want them to be able to protect themselves and their IP, their intellectual property. So as they're creating the live streams, the web videos, the different documentaries and things, that they know what to look for in the contracts. That was a great question that Wayne had earlier about talent releases. Yes, absolutely. Make sure that your talent signs talent releases or appearance releases, A, so that they know where their image is going, and B, so that you as a producer have the right to show that image and transfer it if you choose.
And again, if you're interested in a free consultation with Schatar and I, you can go visit meet.superlivestreams.com. That's meet.superlivestreams.com. You come down here and you select free 15-minute consultation, and you can schedule that. Super Live Producers, folks, everyone who's in our virtual room right now, if you all can please go to meet.superlivestreams.com also and schedule your session with us. It'll only let you schedule the 15-minute, but we're going to give you a 45-minute session because we want to begin to help you all as we wrap out this part of the training, make some plans for where we want to help assess where you are and help make some plans looking ahead for your next stages. So anytime at your convenience this week, Wayne, Ardell, Mia, Jen, Bridget, you guys just come here, meet.superlivestreams.com, schedule your session with us, and we're going to make some time to sit down with you, and we'll go ahead and move forward, and we're going to look forward, make some 2021 plans. All right.
Yes, and then this will just about conclude the lesson and the lab for today. So if you have any additional questions for us, please go ahead and put them in the chat or in the member only chat. There will not be a session following this one today, and then we'll resume again when you contact us here via meet.superlivestreams.com, and you'll be able to book your session with us there.
Yep. And again, if you're interested in taking some action steps, you can go over to Amazon and you can look up My Documentary Journal. You can order the book. Amazon will get it to you really quick, and it's all action. It's all, by the time you finish that book, you're going to know your documentary project way better than you did when it was just an idea. Likewise, if you'd like to join us as a member of the Super Live Producers, come on over to superliveproducers.com/plans/membership, and you'll immediately get access to more than 20 sessions we've already recorded, PDF files, and lots more to come this year. All right. I want to thank everyone who has been contributing and supporting during the Super Live Producers Training Program. This time next week, it will be our last session of this initial cohort. And as we said, we're going to take a couple of weeks off to get right back to it. I'm Maxie Collier, my wife Schatar, Safira Collier. We thank everyone who spent some time with us this afternoon, this Sunday, and we hope that you can go out, make your documentary, make your website, make your live streams, do your projects. All right, we will see everybody on Friday for Super Live Producers Training Session at 11 a.m. See you next time.